Hey, how are ya? In this video, we're going to be going through how you can recreate this Instagram viral infinite road drone effect using Premiere Pro and Adobe Photoshop. If you aren't already familiar, I'm Willis, or Willis.Newman over on Instagram, and this is Will, otherwise known as It Is Will over on Instagram. We're both professional photographers here in Sydney, and yeah, come along. Let's talk gear. All you're gonna need is a drone. The difference between drones is the resolution. Right here, I've got a Mini 4 Pro. The advantage of this is vertical mode, but we'll speak more on that later.
The second thing that you'll need is a car. Today we're just gonna time it with a stranger's car for our shot. If you have a friend that drives a car, you can use them as well. All right, so we've just arrived at our drone location, and what you wanna look for is a dead straight road with no overhead obstructions.
So in this case, we have a nice man-made bridge, which overlaps some water. This is great because there's no trees or any distractions overlapping the road. If there was gonna be trees, it'd make our life in post a lot harder with tracking the car, but also merging the artificial environments and generative fill.
Yeah.
Let's go and shoot it.
Yeah.
All right, so before launching the drone, what we wanna do is set up our camera settings to save battery. So in this case, I'm gonna be choosing the highest resolution settings. This is so that we can do as much enhancement in post as possible without losing resolution and quality.
Willis is just launching the drone, and he's gonna try to find a composition, not too tight, not too loose, so we can edit nicely in post.
Alright, so now that I'm framed up, you can either track it or move the control sticks manually, even using the rule of thirds to help you out with that, just keeping the car center and frame. Again, making it easy for us in post. Alright, so now that we're back at the desk, let's go through how we're going to edit this effect. I've created a project or a sequence with a ratio 9:16 for short form video. As you can see here, this is what we ended up shooting composition like on location. So it's a 9:16 vertical shooting mode thanks to the Mini 4 Pro from DJI, and we had the road running from bottom to top or top to bottom. When I first approached this concept idea, thought that we just shoot vertical video but having the road go from left to right, but you know, trying to get the road as big as possible allowed for us to really improve the resolution. Alright, so once we've imported the footage, what we want to do is apply treatment. So by doing this, we're going to rotate the video 90 degrees. As you can see here, I've rotated the initial clip 90 degrees and changed the scale. And something important to note, you're not going to be able to get a perfect drone shot. So like when we were out before, it was a bit windy. So you can rectify that in post by, you know, making the bridge or the road as smooth or as still as possible. So by doing that, I've keyframed position, scale, and rotation. But yeah, we've used the rulers, which you can see through the guides here, to pretty much keep the road or highway, you know, pretty bang on in the middle and within those ruled lines. So yeah, once you've done that, what you want to do is come down here to export frame. If you can't see this icon in Premiere, then just go plus over here and you'll be able to drag it in and add the camera icon. So we're going to export that frame because that's going to create the basis of what we're going to create our artificial or generative fill landscapes around. So you're just going to press OK and save it to a file location. I've already done so. So what we're going to do is go down to Finder where we've saved the screenshot or the exported frame. And what we're going to do is pretty much drag the exported frame down into Photoshop, and Photoshop's going to load it up in the same ratio that the Premiere file was in, which is 9:16. In other words, 1080 by 1920 pixels. So what you can see here is, yep, it's in that ratio, but this is not what we want. We want the height to remain the same, so we want it to be 1920 pixels high, but we want it to be a bit wider so that we can create that rail effect with the generative artwork or photos that we're going to make. So to do this, we're going to go up to Layer, New, Artboard from Layers. Here it's going to say New Artboard from Layers. We're going to go down to Width, and that's what we're going to be changing. So we're going to be making that 3 times as wide, so 1080 times 3. And that'll pretty much enable us to do that rail, or give us enough room to do a rail effect and track the car in time with a landscape, making it look real. So press OK there. Next we're going to do is go back and select the layer under the artboard. We're going to go over to the marquee rectangle selection tool, and we're going to pretty much select a vague area around that highway or bridge, and then we're going to right click, layer via copy, go over to the selection or movement tool and drag that copied bridge across to the right, and then go up to transform and flip it horizontally so that it looks continuous in the original bridge. We're going to do the same on the left side by clicking the original copy, holding Option and dragging over, and then again you're going to see that it's continuous. Once you've got this sort of look, we're going to go down here, click all 3 layers, right click and do merge. turn it all into one layer. And then what we're pretty much doing here is making Photoshop or training Photoshop to know that when we create our generative fill environments around either side of the road, it's going to learn to sort of create those environments in combination with the road. Because as we track the still environment, creating that parallax movement effect, we want the road to be constant. All right, so once you've got this look, you're going to click on the layer and you're pretty much going to get to work. So we're going to go over to Marquee Rectangle tool and we're going to select either side of the bridge, making sure that you sort of select just onto the bridge so we don't see any of that black or water background from the original location. So that's probably good for me. And then hold down Shift and do the same on the other side. Probably come in just over this, this shadow here. Cool. So what this is going to do is pretty much select both areas around the road. Then we're going to go down to the bottom here and press Generative Fill. And this is where the fun stuff happens. So we're going to start by saying top down of, because obviously this is a drone perspective. And look, if you're sort of short of ideas of what to make around the road, a good way to go about it is to go down to Google and do a search that says something like most unique landscapes on Earth. Because at the end of the day, we want to get like 10 to 15 different landscapes to compile in this effect and create a really sort of cool compilation. So I'm going to choose something, you know, unique. Let's just go for the Sahara, a desert. So the Sahara, back into Photoshop, and then we're going to paste that here, top down of the Sahara. And just to make it more clear, we'll say desert. And then generate. So pretty much while this is loading, I'll explain the whole idea. So we're going to do this about 10-15 times. Obviously in this tutorial, I'm not going to show you 10-15 times of me doing the same thing. That's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll do it twice or 3 times just to show how we're going to export the various environments out of Photoshop. All right, so now it's generated a Sahara lookalike desert, and we've got 3 options. So we can go through, decide which one we like the most. This one here, number 2 or 3, is a complete miss in my opinion. And this is because we want to keep the road pretty constant so that when we do all of our different environments, the road seems to stay the same to an extent. And this is also a bit of a miss because the road is a bit too wide again. So you know what? I'm going to go back to number 1 and I'll press generate again and get some slightly more options. All right, so for the sake of the example, this is probably the one I like the most because it's kept the road as similar as possible to what the rest are going to be. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go down to the artboard layers area down here and I'm going to hide that one I'm happy with just temporarily while I make another choice. So I'm going to go back to what we did before and rinse and repeat. So that's 2 options we've got there, the fake Sahara and the fake reef, which is hopefully going to look semi-realistic in the end result. So once we've got those options, you're obviously going to create a lot more than this. But once you've got all of your different options, you're going to hide the layer 1 copy, the road, the original road. And then you're going to go to artboard 1 here, click that, and then go to artboard background color and change it from white to transparent. This is because we don't want to see any color or any sort of objection between the artificial environments because we're going to have it surround the existing road in Premiere. Alright, so here they are, Sahara and the reef, with nothing in between. You're going to shift click on both of those layers, right click and do export as, and we're going to export as a PNG, not a JPEG. This is very important because PNGs are what have the transparency. Then we're going to select both of them, both of the layers, and press export. Choose where you're going to export it to. Alright, so once they're exported, we're going to go back into Premiere Pro and we're going to go to the exported files that we just did before and we're going to select both of those and drag those both in. They're a bit long at the moment in terms of time, so we're just going to select over both of them, Command R, and then we're going to bring them down to like 15 frames. Just to get a bit more of an idea of how long each environment's going to show for. What's the next most important step is to match the movement of the road with the environment. So this is the whole reason why we made our artboard in Photoshop wide, because we want to have ample space or extra space to create that movement or parallax effect. So for example, what you're going to do is this Great Barrier Reef one that we just done earlier, you're going to click on that and you're going to keyframe movement. So under motion, you're going to go position and then you're going to click right to the end of that first clip, bar 1, so to see what you're doing, and you're going to click another keyframe here. Alright, so once we have that end keyframe, we're going to take roughly 175 off it. This is pre-measured by myself from the previous practices I've done over here, but you're just going to pretty much guess and check the amount between the positioning to match the speed of which your drone is traveling. So in this case, this is pretty good. You can sort of see the environment surrounding it is going the same pace as the road. Cool. So what you're going to do is do the same thing for this next one, making the Sahara Desert move as well, and then you're going to get something like this. Cool, so that was a pretty brief run through of how you're gonna go about editing this effect. If you learned something, maybe leave a like. And if you want to stick around and watch future photography videos, then maybe subscribe. But until next time, later.